What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Big Five Pod, episode number 139, and the final one of the year 2025. I'm, of course, your co-host, Kyle Morello. Next to me, co-host Jake Copestick. Cope, it's been a while, man. How you doing?
It has been a while. I'm good. I guess it's been a while. We didn't record a pod while you were gone, so I guess it's been a while since we've seen both of our faces, but it's good to have you back. Before we get to how I'm doing, Kyle, though, and honestly, you just got back from a trip to Europe that I'd like to ask you about, which is more exciting than anything I can tell you. So I have a question for you.
Okay.
This isn't the first time you've been to Europe, but this is the first time you've done 10 days there.
Yes.
You've also seen a home game at the Siegel Center, VCU home game at the Siegel Center.
Yes.
So now that you've hit the requisite number of days spent in Europe, what's better? What was more life-changing?
I was about to say, it's not what's better, it's what's more life-altering.
Yeah. What was more life-altering?
Man, that's tough. I don't want to get in trouble for my answer. They're both pretty life-altering, Cope, I must say. I mean, listen.
What if you had to pick one? Like you
had to pick one?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, here's the thing. I didn't see VCU play a team in the Atlantic 10 or that they're rivals with at the Siegel Center. I saw them play Penn. And obviously we respect the hell out of Penn. They're in the Big Five. But it was also, I think, during final season or close to final season. So it probably wasn't in its greatest atmosphere. So if I had to choose right now, I would choose the trip to Europe. But a home game at the Siegel Center is pretty damn life-altering, I must say. And I hope to go back to another one. I also hope I go back to the two cities that I went to in Europe, Paris and Amsterdam. That's pretty cool, I must say. But it's close.
For a minute there, I didn't think you were going to give me a definitive answer. But I'm glad you have
You got one out of me. You got one out of me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. We spent a bunch of time over there in Paris and in Amsterdam, gallivanting, as I like to joke. But it was a lot of fun. Tried some food, saw some museums. Got off the train one day in Paris and the Eiffel Tower is just here. Pretty big building, Cope. Gotta say, pretty wild to, look up and see one of the world's most iconic buildings just there. Pretty surreal. So it was a lot of fun. Glad we're back though. Now, of course, we got back right before the holiday season, so got to spend some time with family. Kind of regather before the new year starts. So hope you all had a happy holidays, of course, as well. And yeah, happy to be back talking Big Five with you.
Hell yeah, man. Absolutely.
How was your holiday, Cope? I don't want to, we can't not have you give up.
Yeah.
It's been like 3 weeks.
Yeah. It's been like the holidays were nice. It's usually pretty small around I didn't go anywhere. We hosted. It's pretty small. So it's nothing too crazy, which is nice. It's just relaxing. Nice to have everybody in one spot, but nothing too crazy here. It was nice. Had some time off of work. I had yesterday off, taking next couple of days off around the holidays, getting them in. So yeah, nice, relaxing. I feel shockingly well rested for this time in the college hoop season. I was not feeling this good last year.
No,
I'll tell you.
Or the year before.
But I feel well rested, and I don't need 2 weeks to rejuvenate here. I just felt like a couple of days was nice. I did Temple Monday, went to Villanova Tuesday up at Newark that we'll get into, but nice to have a little respite now. And then, I'm a pen and paper guy, so I have my handy dandy calendar right here of all the games I plan on going to. So
it did blend in with your background, it's there. We know it's there.
Yeah,
it's now.
There.
It's fine.
I forecasted. I looked and said, you turn the calendar, Kyle, and you're in the thick of things now. There's a ton of doubleheaders that you could go to. So I applied to a bunch of games I planned on going to. I plan on, knock on wood here. I need to arrange a hotel, but St. Joe's plays down at VCU on Monday the 19th, which is Martin Luther King Day. I plan on being there for that. I plan on knocking out a VCU home game at the Siegel Center. But man, Kyle, I flipped the pages. I looked at this calendar. I applied to a bunch of games yesterday, and there is a whole lot of games on the calendar. Not a whole lot of off days. So the little rest we get for the holidays is much needed as we charge into the second phase of the year.
As Den Hurley said once, get us now. And that's to the non-off days of the college basketball season, because it's coming. it's coming. And that's just with life in general, of course, with the new year, but especially for the college basketball season and the Big 5 season. Get ready. As we enter phase 2 of the season, as we always like to say, which is conference play. So cope with that before we get into everything that's happened over the last week or so. Why don't you grab that ball, run that break? Let's do some quick hitters. So what do you got?
Yeah, really, really quick. One Big 5 related, and then there's another that we would be remiss if we didn't at least touch a little bit on, even if it doesn't have to deal with the Big 5 directly. First, Kyle, unfortunately, we have our first bit of injury news for this year. Villanova's Chris Jeffrey, he's going to miss some time with an arthroscopic knee. He got arthroscopic knee surgery announced on Friday, December 19th out of Villanova. Backed him up, gave him some really good minutes in his freshman year. A top 100 recruit, decided to follow Kevin Willard from Villanova. He went to high school right around the corner from Maryland, was committed there for a long time, ends up following Kevin Willard to Villanova. And even in year one, even early, I thought he gave him some minutes as a big, strong guard, 6'3", 200. 9 games this year, Kyle, 4.2 points. I think there's a bright future here for this guy. Hopefully they get him back, and it sounds like they will. Sounds like they're optimistic that Chris Jeffrey will come back, but arthroscopic knee surgery for Mr. Jeffrey, no timetable for his return. The fact that this came, you give him a couple weeks before the new year begins, perhaps as a guy that could get back, and hopefully that's the case, because I think that there's a lot of promise in this guy right here. So Chris Jeffrey on the shelf for a little bit for the Wildcats. And then finally, Kyle, some NCAA news, some administrative news. We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about this, because I feel like with the holidays and there's no Diamond Head Classic, so there's no Christmas Eve hoops, there's no Christmas Day hoops. We did kind of have some downtime, and we did have some literally true respite where there was a couple days where there weren't any games. And then even on the 28th, you only had a handful of games, a lot of which were D1s playing non-D1s to the point where it didn't really have eyeballs. But this got all the attention, Kyle. And that would be James Najee, who is a former NBA draft pick of the Hornets, who's now the Knicks own his rights.
Yes. In the Karl-Anthony Towns trade. Yes.
He has enrolled at Baylor, will be joining, that is on campus. He took a picture of Scott Drew doing the Sikkim Bears. He is on campus. He is enrolling for the spring semester. Kyle, he can legally drink. He is 21 years old. He was drafted in the NBA 2 years ago, and the NCAA said, you know what? How about 4 years of eligibility for you, sir? He can play college basketball if he would like until he is 25 and is probably mere months away from needing to go on his own insurance. Question is, Kyle, where do we draw the line? There are no. I listened to a clip from Matt Painter and just said, just tell us what the rules are so we can abide by them. But it's kind of hard when we don't know. There's so much flying the plane as it's in midair and so much making things up as we go with the NCAA. It's like you keep seeing stuff like this, and it's like Oklahoma. I'll talk about the Kevin Willard quote now, I guess. Joking mid-season, said, I'm going to bring in a 40-year-old Chinese guy. I'm sure he'll get eligible. Oklahoma just brought in a 23-year-old Russian mid-year. Multiple other schools are making mid-season additions, getting people to enroll for the spring semester internationally. Georgetown's got another point guard coming in. Like, where do we stop the line here? It's like you have free agency. It's like you have a trade deadline. Like your roster, you can see how you span non-conference play, and then whatever holes you want to plug, you can get a European who's a player who's probably played multiple years in a professional league who's not going to come over. There's no guidance. There's no definitive rules. This is all gray area. There's no black and white with the NCAA. It's all gray area. There's no man's land for every single rule that they have. And this is the latest in an absurd last couple years for the NCAA. There was another report that Trenton Flowers, who was originally committed to Louisville to play for Kenny Payne, decommitted, went to play in the NBL, has played a handful of games for the Bulls this year, that people are reaching out to him. They wanted a dude who legitimately played in NBA games to come to college. Now, I know there was a lot of gripe on social media with Mr. Joe Tipton, who he reported some teams are in on Trenton Flowers. It turns out that wasn't the case. Regardless, this is crazy, Kyle. The guy James Najee was drafted into the NBA. Played
And
summer league.
31st
Played
overall pick. He was the first pick of the second round.
Exactly.
2 years ago.
He played in summer league. He's 21, and he's granted 4 years of eligibility. This is a grown man. This is a grown man who's going to be playing college basketball now, and giving Baylor. Look, I'm not going to talk about him like he's LeBron, and this is some like superstar addition that's going to put Baylor over the top. But this is going to help the front line for sure. It's crazy to me that like this is where we are at. I never thought today. I thought any type of you keep your name in the draft, you go undrafted, like you reach a point of no return here with other guys. You know what? Mark Armstrong from Villanova, just for example, he put his name in the draft and went undrafted. You reach a point of no return where you keep your name in. And once that draft is finalized, whether you're picked or not, you don't have a choice to go back. So this guy was drafted, and he can come back to school. It's absurd, Kyle. It's absurd. The NCAA loses in court every single time. They have no definitive rules. They need Dan Hurley was like, we need a commissioner, we need a Goodell, we need a David Stern. Like, you need a guy they need somebody who's they probably need one of these for football too. You need a college football commissioner. You need a college basketball commissioner.
At least for football, like you have the highest power conference commissioners kind of overseeing it. You have the Big 12 and the SEC and the Big 10. Like they're involved, and you have the college football playoff committee. I know that's just, selections and whatnot, but like you have more of it. And it's also different because there's not really pro leagues like that overseas where they can bring in people. So this is more of just a basketball isolated issue almost, at least in terms of how heightened this is compared to the other sports of the NCAA. But it's one thing, not that I think it's right, but it's one thing if you recruit a player who's 20, 21 years old, who is from Russia, like the example you gave, Cope, who played overseas. I don't necessarily agree with it, but like at least they've never been in the NBA draft. They've never played college basketball. Like there's somewhat of a line to draw in the sand there. But to get someone who, yes, he didn't play in college, but he was drafted by an NBA team. He played in summer league. I know he didn't get a contract. He went overseas. He played for FC Barcelona. Where do we draw the line? Trenton Flowers, I don't think will get eligibility. I think that's... No,
that was almost like rage debate to the point where it's like that you can't have a guy who played NBA minutes.
No. He literally was on a contract. And I saw Charlie Baker put out a statement today. John Rothstein tweeted it. That was like, no player who was on a contract, whether it was a two-way contract, G League, NBA, no player of that nature can play in the NCAA, which also there was, speculation, not speculation, but the Knicks have a player in G League named Dink Pate.
Yeah. Played G League, I think, for the Mexico City team?
No, for Westchester Knicks, I think. He's been awesome in the G League. He was in the weird kind of phase where he signed with the Ignite, but the Ignite folded. And so we just kind of had to float around. He's only 19 years old. So like that could be an exception where it'd be like, okay. But he also is playing professional basketball. The G League's professional basketball. So it's Cope, where do we draw the line? And now you also have these really high profile coaches coming out against the NCAA in this. Tom Izzo, you mentioned Matt Painter, Rick Pitino, John Calipari had one of the best rants I think I've ever seen from him, which is saying a lot because he's a pretty enigmatic guy. I don't even know if I said that right, but you know what I mean. Like him being one of the champions of this, I think will help. It's also a little bit ironic too, because Cal kind of tried to bend the rules at times in the past when he was at Kentucky. But this is to get to the point where those guys like Rick Pitino also maybe in the same boat too. Not that Tom Izzo has been, but he's one of, the most legendary coaches of this generation. Matt Painter's been to a bunch of, he's had a bunch of success in the last 15, 20 years. Like having these guys come out and say, hey, this is not good. It's a problem. But what's the solution though? Because this floodgate's already opened.
Yeah. And that's the thing. The NIL stuff and portal stuff, like they didn't think about what was going to. They didn't think about like the magnitude of what it could be.
There should have been rules before it got sent off and said you can do this.
Correct, but please remember that you're dealing with the NCAA.
I know
that you're asking too much of them to be rational and to figure this stuff out. Like Charlie Baker had to come out and say that no person who's played in the NBA can go back to college and play in college, and like that was news. Like how is that not? Does that not register already that that's just a dead giveaway that you don't get to play college basketball if you get drafted or play in the NBA? Like that was a newsworthy headline. It's so beyond comprehension.
It's bad.
Yeah,
I think it should be as far as if you've played professional basketball on any level. I'm not talking like developmental like club teams. Like I think I have to look more into this, but I think in Europe there's like soccer academies and things like that. I think if you play in an academy and you get paid for that, but you're not actually in a pro league, you're in a developmental league, sure, you can play in college. But like if you're playing for FC Barcelona, if you're playing for Real Madrid, if you're playing for Olympiacos in Greece, if you're playing for these teams in the Euro League, you shouldn't be allowed to go play against what should be 18 to 22-year-olds.
I agree, and I think that just totally makes sense.
Extremely reasonable.
Yeah, I think it's very reasonable. These don't seem like they're big steps, but they open the floodgates, have been sued so many times that it's like every decision they make is grounds for somebody to find a loophole and take it to court where they'll inevitably lose. And people will challenge it. I don't know how to fix it, Kyle. I don't know how to fix it. But
it's not our job to fix it.
But the NCAA should be more concerned about fixing this than expanding the NCAA tournament.
Yes.
Perhaps that's a good jumping off point before we talk about this for 40 minutes.
Again, Cope, every time we talk about some of these things, it comes down to the almighty dollar. That's all it is. And I'm all for, and you and I both are pro players getting paid to be in college and play professional sports, like not professional sports, to play college sports and be somewhat treated as professionals while you're in college, because these players generate especially for football too, obviously, but for men's basketball, women's basketball as well, generate so much revenue for these schools and the NCAA. I definitely think they should be getting their share of that. And they are now, and they have been for a few years. But to have all these loopholes, and I think it also mainly comes down to the transfer portal too. It's a little bit less of an NIL issue compared to a transfer portal issue. But at one point, does the player empowerment movement take over and just be the player takeover movement? It's getting there. It's not there already.
Right. And don't lose sight that you still got to go to school too.
You still got to go to school.
Like James, what if James Najee decides to just go back to the Knicks? After playing a semester at Baylor, playing for up until March. Does he go to class? Does he need to maintain out? Like what happens there?
What happens to academic eligibility?
Yeah, what happens to academic eligibility when you bring in a dude who's really his main focus is going there, who's already got draft rights to a team that's like, hey, I don't have to be here. I can go get paid to play basketball professionally by the Knicks. Then what do you do?
Yeah,
have to go.
Yeah,
it's very very confusing and just mind boggling to see that one.
I know the one thing I want to say too before we move on, like I think we're going to start to see, if this is the road we're going down, I think we're going to start to see NBA teams using college as a drafting stash. That's kind of what James Najee is right now in a way. I know I think ultimately he's choosing this path, but I think there's a scenario now where instead of sending players overseas for a draft and stash, instead they can be like, hey, you're 19 years old, you didn't play in college, or maybe you did play in college. I don't know. The rules are still up in the air, seemingly. Why don't you sign on with us? We'll have your draft rights. Go play for North Carolina and develop under Hubert Davis, or go to Kansas and play under Bill Self and develop and be in that environment and go play in the NCAA tournament. Like that could be a road we're going down too, which is interesting, but I don't know if I love it. But maybe it's just, fist a cloud for us at this point because we're traditionalists and that's the way it's going. But that seems like that's a possibility. Yeah,
and you're opening up another can of worms there with college being. But I think that's another thing too. Is I think college needs to. I heard Colin Cowherd use this term last year because he was interviewing Mick Cronin, who was talking about the portal and everything. And Mick Cronin was like, I send guys to the NBA and they're like, your guy doesn't know how to set a screen, this and that. And Mick's like, you won't let me teach them. They leave after 8 months.
Yeah.
Like I can't teach them and develop. I think the bottom line, Kyle, before we move on here, I think the NBA, maybe you and then again, you can't really go back with some of the rules. It's hard to go back on the rule where you change it to the women's game where you have to be in college a certain amount of years. But it's a better product. Like these players are more developed. I think
they will never go back on that, first of all. But yeah, it would be.
But bottom line, Cowherd said, NBA, put your arms around it. Hug college basketball. Put your arms around them. Embrace it. That I think more of that needs to happen. Don't view college basketball as a bad thing. You tried to undermine college basketball with G League Ignite, which totally fell flat on its face.
Yeah. Well, with NIL, that kind of ruined the purpose of it. I think it was a decent idea for the time, but it didn't last long.
Why don't we move on?
We're going to move on. And most of the time we say discussion for another day, but this is one of those other days when we haven't recorded in a few weeks. This happened. We'd be remiss not to talk about it, like Cope said. But Cope, we had a maybe not as much as usual Big Five basketball to talk about, but we certainly have some things to talk about. So why don't we get into it? I know we covered a bunch on Spaces this past weekend, so we will still go in depth a little bit here as well. But Cope, I want to let you start off. Give me a team from the last few weeks that you want to talk about. Good, bad, ugly. Who is on your mind right now?
Well, let's start with St. Joe's. We'll get the bad news out first. I guess get it out of the way. Let's start with St. Joe's. So look, they wrapped up non-conference play. They beat Arcadia 87-65, a game that they were losing at one point in the first half. Decent chunk of minutes into the first half. The second D2 team they've played, a very non-inspiring non-conference schedule. They finished 8-5. They did play some teams. They had to travel to Vegas. They had to travel up to the Carrier Dome and play against a bunch of Power 5 athletes in Syracuse. However, Kyle, the big news is that they lost the bye game to Coastal Carolina, and then Deuce Jones got dismissed from the team. When we talked to Aaron Bracey on Spaces, we took this a couple of different directions. We talked about the non-conference slate. Then we also talked about attendance at games and the fan experience. And there's a lot of problems on Hawk Hill, Kyle, to put it frankly. I was at the Coppin State game. Nobody was there. Aaron in his column, gym was empty, not a lot of energy on the bench. You come to see the tickets are $40 for the worst seat in the house at Hagen to see them play Delaware State or Coastal Carolina or Coppin State, not a premier team. The gym is empty. The fans, there seems to be agitation that, has not only carried in this year, but in the latter years of Billy was there as well. And it just all kind of reared its head with not only the loss to Coastal, where Jaden Glover Toscano was out, Deuce Jones was out, they said, due to an illness. He missed the last 2 games. The Del State game was an illness. This game was for personal reasons. We then come to find out the Deuce was scrubbed from the website, dismissed from the team. The bottom line is, I said this on Spaces, this is kind of a season that it was almost over before it almost felt like that it could begin. And Steve's brought in after Billy leaves. Nobody signed up for this. He needs to learn the team on the fly. The team needs to learn Steve. And just in today's era that we're in, Kyle, where there's freedom of movement wherever you want to go, stuff like this, unfortunately, could happen. Like Deuce, he was here because Billy recruited him. And you see some of the reports. Stuff in practice just wasn't getting along how people thought that this would. And it's unfortunate that this has come this way, but Steve has enough pride about Hawk Hill, and when we talked to him, like, this is a place where his son went. He's had a bunch of family members that worked there, but family members that graduated from there. Whether this is his only year on campus or not, Kyle, Steve is gonna have pride for the program and not let one person be bigger than the St. Joseph's men's basketball program itself. So it's unfortunate that now you have to deal with losing your leading scorer as you go into non-conference play. as you have to go play at St. Louis, the best team in the conference right now. That seems to be the only one that's on maybe some life support for an at-large bid. But Kyle, if this season is going to go off the rails, it's going to be because of stuff like this. Is because Deuce Jones didn't sign up to play for Steve. There's a sudden change at the end. They don't really have anywhere else they could go. But if things don't go the way they want it to, and they start to lose some games, the problem is, Kyle, you just might have guys for one reason or another. They're thinking about what's next. They're thinking about the offseason. They're thinking about the end of the year for a situation that they didn't sign themselves up for. So it's unfortunate, Kyle, because I thought there was talent here. There's certainly some youth. Didn't think they'd be nearly as good as they were last year. And that team finished 6th in A-10 play, or in the standings at the end of the year. It could be a rough non-conference slate on Hawk Hill. I'm not going to lie to you, Kyle. There's so much to unpack. There's Aaron Bracey's column. There's JOD's open letter to Jill Bodensteiner. Like, the excitement isn't there in the arena. That you see how expensive the tickets are. There wasn't really a reason for you to be excited to show up to Hagan Arena, to see a big game, to see a premier opponent so far in the non-conference slate. Now you have stuff like this going on, and there's a lot of frustration around the program, that spark isn't there. I didn't know if, was this team going to rally around Steve? Is it going to be a situation where it's just, hey, it's not what they signed up for? It's seeming like it's the latter, Kyle, unfortunately. So they're in a tough spot. There's a decision that needs to be made. And look, we need to knock on wood and give the benefit of the doubt here for a non-conference slate, because the year is far from over, Kyle. There's a whole lot of basketball to be played. But if things continue the way they are, Kyle, people are going to continue to be frustrated with Jill in the athletic department, just where the program sits right now. And there's going to be a decision that's going to be made at the end of the year, because if Steve Donahue's kept, he's going to be 67 going into next year. Do you do a national search? Is there actually some validity to, hey, this is our permanent guy, and he's going to be here a while. So there's a lot left, Kyle. But right now, it's hard. It's hard to be encouraged by what you've seen on Hawk Hill so far. I know you were on vacation. You got back to the madness that this was. Anything you want to say on, after I gave a monologue there? Anything you want to say on Deuce or Joe's as it stands right now?
Yeah, you mentioned it potentially getting off the rails this season. Cope, I would argue it's already off the rails this season. This is the thing that solidified that, if not at least pushed it in that direction for it to be this way. You can talk about the results, in general. Obviously, they lost the bye game to Coastal. They didn't beat Arcadia. I know they beat Arcadia by 22, but that's a result you beat a bottom tier D1 team by, not a non-D1 team. No disrespect to Arcadia. By that many.
That's a middling. Yes. That's a middling.
Actually, by the exact same score, by the way, 87-65. That's what they beat Coppin State. How about that? Yeah. But a Coppin State team that was ranked 364th on KenPom. They beat Delaware State 355. Like I said, lost to Coastal. They lost to Penn, who they are or should be better than. They've beaten Lafayette. They've beaten Drexel. They've beaten Princeton in a bad year. This isn't looking good now without your leading scorer. And to, touch on the Deuce thing, we don't know what went on behind the scenes. We may never know what went on behind the scenes. Obviously, something happened that led to this. And I don't know if that's an indictment on the player. I don't know if that's an indictment on the program, the coach, whoever it is. Having us interviewed Steve and seemingly knowing Steve's personality and character from being fans and knowing other people who've been around him, I would imagine that this isn't something he, took lightly and wanted to do, but something had to have probably forced his hand to, like you said, have the logo be the most important thing about the team. But from a basketball perspective, yes, you're losing your best scorer, you're losing your best player. arguably your most highly touted player. I mean, with Jaden Glover-Toscano too, coming over from St. John's last year. But this is someone who you were expecting to lead one of the better backcourts in the conference, and hit a shot, by the way, to beat Temple. Otherwise, they'd have one less win on their schedule if it weren't for him. So it's bad, and they scheduled a bad non-conference that we went over extensively. But now you're seeing the end result of this, where yes, they have a winning record, and the old adage in sports is that you can only beat who's on your schedule. Cope, they made the schedule.
You get to choose.
The thing about college sports is you get to choose who's on your schedule a lot of the time. Obviously, conference play, no, but for the first, what are the 13 games of the year, you get to choose your schedule, and they scheduled 2 non-D1 teams. Now, 1 is common for a lot of schools. I feel like 2 is a little bit much. They scheduled 364 Coppin State. They scheduled 355 Delaware State. They scheduled 323 Lafayette on opening night. Now, you don't expect Princeton to be so bad when you schedule them, but not a good team that they ended up playing and only beating by 2 points on a neutral floor in Trenton. And now you're in conference play where you were expected to be in the 6 to 8 range going into the year. Now, Cope, are they legitimately a team that might be fighting for the last couple spots in the conference? I think yes. This team is, and I don't want to be overly mean, but they're not good. They're shooting under 27% from 3, which is 357th in the nation. Their effective field goal percentage, according to Ken Palm, all of this is, by the way, 45.8, which is 323rd in the nation. They shoot free throws well. It's about the only thing they do well. They're a decent defensive team, but they can't score. If they can't score, they're not going to win a whole lot of games. So on top of all that, all but 3 of these games have been with their best player playing. And one of those games was the bye game against Coastal that they lost. One of them was against Delaware State, which of course they won. And then against Arcadia, like we just mentioned. This has the potential to be really bad. Where they go from here, I don't know. I guess we're going to have to see how the next 10 weeks or so plays out. But you mentioned it being potentially off the rails, Cope. I think they're already there.
I want to give a little benefit of the doubt, but like if I'm thinking with my head, like this is a chance. I think this will get worse from where it is now than it gets better. Like there's a better chance, like you said, that they're potentially fighting to get out of the pillow fight than they are for a bye, for sure. They have trouble with identity as it is. They can't shoot well. Not like Deuce. Deuce Jones isn't Steph Curry here. But you're losing a guy who can get to the free throw line, who can also is one of your guys that could step out and hit one. So they're already having trouble with identity. Now you lose your leading scorer, best player. Like that part, I don't think is going to get better. And maybe it will. Maybe this is a bit of addition by subtraction. I seriously don't see that happening though. Like you have an engine, a spark plug. You need someone to get to the line, make it happen. That could be your guy. And he's not there no more. I'm not even blaming the move. If you think it's good to part ways, then part ways.
Yeah, and that the actual move from the basketball is completely separate, and you have to separate those things.
Right.
He did not get dismissed from the program because he's not a good basketball player. He's a really good college basketball player at this stage of his career, and he's young. He's only going to get better if he continues and finds a new team next year and everything like that. But this is something apparently that had to be done, and I respect that. That's not at all, I think, what we're saying here. But these factors combined with the scheduling, the basketball that we have seen, which with Deuce was at best inconsistent, and on top of all the factors you mentioned with some of the administration things and the prices of the games and things like that, and letters to the athletic director from fans. Not that it hasn't been this way for a few years for some of these things. It was like this under Billy, too. There were people who were frustrated with some things in the administration. It's magnified now that they haven't won 20 games, or they're probably not going to win 20 games this year again, which isn't the crazy highest benchmark, but is something that happened the last couple of years. They made back-to-back A-10 semis. They were a good team. They were not a great team, but they were a good team. Inconsistent one as well, but they had a little bit of maybe minor something to show for it. This team is going to have a lot less than that. And some of these things are coming even more to light now. And you have Billy leaving, which again, not the program's fault, not the player's fault, not Steve's fault, but regardless, this is something that they're dealing with. So I get it for St. Joe's fans. This is frustrating. I also, unfortunately, don't see it getting better, but maybe there's a world out there where they rally and Steve gets them going, and not saying they're going to finish near the top of the conference, but maybe instead of the projected 6-12 that Ken Pom has them, maybe they go 9-9. I don't see it. Certainly possible. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities, but they have tough sledding ahead. And New Year's Eve opening at St. Louis is the day this is going to come out. It's a tough one. It's a tough one to start with, Cope. Yeah. I don't know if you have anything more on St. Joe's, but that's pretty much all I got.
No, I think we said just about everything that needed to be said.
All right, well then let's move on.
Between eligibility and like the many like things going on at St. Joe's, Kyle, we don't even need to touch on any. We could just be here for an hour.
Yeah, and we got a lot more stuff to talk about.
I'm thinking we do a Spaces at some point. I'm thinking we do a Spaces. I texted Aaron Bracey and said, what if we just did a St. Joe's safe space?
I think that's a really good idea. I think we get some people involved in that.
We'll talk to Hawk Talk or whoever. Let's do a St. Joe's safe spaces. I guess like we could just be the moderator just so things don't get really off the rails, but let's talk. Whatever's on your mind, let's talk. I'm thinking we do that instead of go for an hour here.
I think that's a great idea, Cope. We're gonna have to follow up on that.
Yeah, we'll have to follow up on that in 2026.
Yes.
All right,
Positive note.
We've done a lot of complaining about NCAA and talking about St. Joe's. Let's talk about something good. The Big Five needs this. I know it's Villanova, and we'd love to see one of these other schools get in the tournament that haven't made it in a couple of years. But Villanova, Kyle, let's knock on some wood here. They look poised to be a team that's making some noise, making some serious tournament noise, capped off by a huge win at the Prudential Center in Newark, and Kevin Willard's return, Seton Hall, beating those Pirates 64-56. I was in attendance, a sold-out Lower Bowl at the Rock on Tuesday, the 23rd, right before Christmas. Festivus.
Festivus, yes, for the rest of us.
Kyle, a 16-0 early second half run broke this game open for Villanova. And even though they turned the ball over 18 times, which, again, you need to give credit to Seton Hall. That's what they do. If Shaheen Holloway team turns you over 18 times, I almost think you just shrug your shoulders and just say, well, that's what a Shaheen Holloway team is going to do. Fifth, Kyle, in Ken Pom in turnover percentage. Fifth. Number one in steal percentage, by the way. So I think you just say, okay, they're really good at doing that. But even on a night where all that happened, Kyle, Villanova pulls this one out. A masterful performance on Caden Lewis. 16 points, Kyle, 6 of 11 from the field, made both his three-pointers, including he had a 4-point play at the beginning of the game that was actually Bud Clark's second foul that I thought really jumbled things up for Seton Hall here. And Bud didn't play, he didn't sit the whole first half, but he had a 5-6 minute stretch where he had to sit after picking 2 fouls up in the first minute and change that I thought just broke the rhythm of Seton Hall a little bit. They never got really into one offensively without Bud in there getting in the paint and scoring a little bit. So, but hey, Caden Lewis, 16 points, 3 steals in this one. The defense is really what got Villanova the win here, and I'll talk about that. But Bryce Lindsey, 15 points. Matt Hodge, 12 points, 6 rebounds. He had a couple big offensive rebound tapbacks in the second half to break some Seton Hall runs. Like that crowd never totally got, like the roof never got blown off the buildings. Even when Seton Hall tried to come back in the second half, Villanova had an answer for him. Duke Brennan, 10 points, 9 boards, nearly a double-double for him. Villanova, Kyle, 22 of 45 from the field, good for almost 49%, and they made 10 of 23 threes, 43.5% from deep. Seton Hall, by the way, 21 of 63, good for 33% from the field and 3 of 13 from three. This isn't a team that's going to shoot a lot or have the players to do that and get into a three-point barrage with you. But They shot a poor percentage. Most of that, Villanova's defense. Did Seton Hall take some shots that even Shaheen Holloway admitted weren't great shots for them? Sure. But Villanova contested. They made him take some tough twos. They made Bud Clark take some tough shots, who was just 1 of 11 from the field for 4 points. And even though he didn't foul out, and Bud Clark still ended up he played 20 minutes, not nearly what he should be for Seton Hall to be winning, but when you have to sit like you have with his foul trouble. Like, if Bud Clark goes 1 for 11, I don't imagine Seton Hall is going to win many games. And when he's in foul trouble, he shoots that percentage. Most of them are tough. That's a huge recipe for success against the Seton Hall team that Villanova is going to have to play against again. But it was the defense, Kyle. Active with their hands, some fast break points in the second half, clogging up pass lanes, pressuring the ball. The defensive side of the ball is where they needed to come the farthest to reach like the team that they want to be. They did it, especially in the second half of this game. And even though they turned it over 18 times, they were efficient when they shot the ball, Kyle. Bryce Lindsey was really good. Caden Lewis was spectacular in this game. This Villanova team, they look to be for real, Kyle. They really do. The offense has been humming all year, and if that defense can come around and they can really hurt you on both ends, Kyle, they're going to be a factor in the Big East. And we talked about it on Spaces. I see UConn. St. John's has underperformed. Creighton has underperformed. Marquette seems to have totally bottomed out. Providence seems to be a disaster again. It looks like their at-large is almost done before the turn of the calendar for the new year. Georgetown has an injury to a big. They've lost some games. Kyle, I look at Villanova, and I truly see, I think St. John's will bounce back. I think a Creighton will bounce back. Why can't they compete with those guys playing like this? Why can't they? There's a chance that after I see a solidified number 1 team in Connecticut, after that, I truly think a Villanova team that was projected 6 at the beginning of the year, there's a shot this team, like 2 or 3 is in the conversation. They're playing really well right now.
I think right now they're 2.
They play DePaul tomorrow. They play Butler on the 3rd, which I wish I was going out to Eagle Fieldhouse. I get there at some point. But 2 very winnable games that if they can avoid some bad losses there and continue to put some momentum forward, only losses, by the way, to top 10 teams basically at BYU playing in Vegas. You're essentially playing on their home turf 1 state away. And then going to Michigan, who's been just throttling people unmercilessly, by the way. I mean, just throttling teams. They destroyed McNeese, who's a top 100 team in Ken Palm yesterday. There's a good team, Kyle. You're going to get into the grind of a conference play now, whether there will be much, much stiffer competition. Villanova has played good games, but we'll see even the Pittsburgh win. I don't think is going to travel. We'll have to see. I think it's TBD as if that Wisconsin win will travel. The competition's going to get stiff in the Big East, Kyle, as the conference always is. But I think this is a really good team, Kyle. I don't see why, if they can continue to string them together here, this couldn't be number 2 or number 3 in the Big East.
I don't see why not either. And right now, according to Bracket Matrix, which is a website that compiles all the major and even non-major bracket projections and ranks them, has them as a 7 seed right now, which I think is fair. Like that, they were a team that were not on the radar of the NCAA tournament coming into the season, and now they're firmly in a 7 spot, which is cool to see. And I think it's accurate. I think this team is good. I don't think they're flashy. I don't think they have crazy high upside. Like I don't see them. They're not competing for a national championship this year, I don't think. But they're a good team, Cope. They're a team that's going to make noise in the Big East. Hopefully get to the NCAA tournament. Hopefully make a little bit of noise there. But this is higher than people were expecting going in. Like you mentioned, 6 in the preseason Big East poll. I think we had them a little bit higher, maybe 4th or 5th in our preview with Tommy Godin, but still not something we were expecting. And this is a team that they're just playing consistent, solid basketball. Duke Brennan's better than we thought he was going to be. Bryce Lindsey's better than we thought he was going to be. Matt Hodge has come along, and we've seen a lot from him in his first full year of eligibility. I know last year he had the eligibility issue, and of course, Caden Lewis has been a freshman superstar. Maybe not one that's talked about quite as much as AJ DeBansta, and I know Darren Peterson's been hurt, but Cameron Boozer, Kopete, like all these guys, like he's not getting talked about quite as much as them, but he's definitely starting to creep up there, and he should be more. This is a bona fide star right now, and I think he could even ascend further into superstar status too, which is the crazy thing. But he's a guy who can fill up a stat sheet, be a facilitator, he can score the basketball. Exciting to watch him, and yes, they did turn it over 18 times against Seton Hall, but still navigating a Sheen Holloway defense and coming out on the other side with a win, and a fairly comfortable one. Seton Hall made it closer toward the end, but they were up a lot in this game, and they were up pretty much the entire game. So kudos to them. And I said this on Spaces too, Cope. So far, and to be determined if this sticks, of course, but so far, the win of the year in the Big Five. 100%. This is an impressive win against the Seton Hall team going in that was 11-1. And they were talking about being potentially nationally ranked and around the same seed line, if not maybe, a little higher than Villanova at that time. It was only a week ago, but regardless, this was an impressive win. So yes, we had some bad news we talked about first, but the good news is that Villanova is playing some pretty solid basketball. Right now, they're firmly in the NCAA tournament picture. And listen, I don't think they need a crazy good Big East like they have in past years to be able to make the NCAA tournament. Right now, Ken Pom has them as 14-6 as their projection in the conference, which would put them at a 23-8 record overall heading into the Big East tournament. That's a tournament team. 23 wins in the Big East. That's a tournament team. And that's going into the Big East tournament with they have the potential to win, 3 more at least, depending on seeding. So this is a team you're looking at where hopefully they will end the streak of Big Five teams not making the NCAA tournament. And I know you mentioned on the onset of this that maybe you wish it was another team too that is making the NCAA tournament in the Big Five to help kind of bring back some juice, because it's really only been Villanova in the last 15 years, 10, 15 years, but let's baby steps. Let's go with one first. So it's exciting to see here as well. Cope, let's move on. A few other teams to talk about here. Obviously, I don't know if we need to go so in depth on every single one of them. Drexel really hasn't played that much. They lost their opener to Charleston in CAA 72-63. Penn had a tough outing. Just barely losing at George Mason, which is honestly not that you want to take moral victories, but a fairly impressive one considering they were out without their best player, Ethan Roberts, losing 83-79 there. Temple opened up conference play with a win on the night of us recording this at Charlotte, 76-73. So nice start to conference play for Adam Fisher and company. And then LaSalle, Cope, I got to be honest with you, I don't remember their exact result right now, so I'm going to look because
they play tomorrow. I'll be there.
They got blown out by Michigan. That was the last thing, and that was on December 21st. You will be there New Year's Eve
tomorrow
as they host George Mason. So another Big Five team playing George Mason, which should be a tough one. Has not gone well for LaSalle, losing by 52 to Michigan. Cope, and that's not an indictment on LaSalle. Michigan's the best team in the country by a pretty good margin right now. And like all efficiency landscapes that any website, they're great. They're a great team.
Yeah, they're going to break records. They're absolutely shattering.
They already have 8 40-point victory. No, I think they've put up 100 points in 8 games. I think that's what it was. They have only played in 12 or 13.
Well, they smashed McNeese. Like Villanova only losing by 28 was like almost a victory for college basketball.
Yeah.
Like losing by less than 30.
And not allowing 100 points and not allowing 90 points, might add. 89, 61
I mean, the bar is no disrespect to Nova or any of these teams. It's just it's low because Michigan it's like you have a fortress around the rim. You you play with the Dymar, Yaxel, and Morris Johnson, who for their respective teams at UAB, Illinois, and UCLA they played before were like the biggest player on the court for them at times. Now they're on the court together.
It's insane.
It's like you have a moat around the rim. You can't get there. Yeah, let's why don't we play a drop coverage? Speedy Elliott Cadeau is going to pester you. And then guess what? 7-4, 7-3 a Dymar is in the drop. Big Morris Johnson, Yaxel. It's an embarrassment of riches. What a great team Dusty May has assembled.
Craziest thing, too, is second game of the season, they played at Little Caesars against Wake Forest, and they needed overtime to beat them by a point.
I watched them play TCU. They gave the ball away every other possession. They clawed back and won on the road. 67
points they scored in that game, only won by 4. And so at that point,
turnovers.
That's before, Feast Week and some of the MTEs they were in. That was before Players Era. And it was like, okay, maybe this Michigan team's not all that cracked up. I think, were they 7th going into the year? I think it was something like that. And then Players Era happened. They beat San Diego State by 40. They beat Auburn by 30. They beat Gonzaga by 40. And then they beat Rutgers by 41. And then the Nova game happened. They beat Maryland by 18 and put up 101 points. They put up 100 points in three straight games, 5 out of 6. The one that they didn't was Nova. Not to go off on a Michigan tangent during the Big 5 pod, but LaSalle was one of those games too. God, what a team.
Yeah, they're incredible. Look, you losing by 52 points sucks. It sucks. But it's, for LaSalle, it's still dealing with injuries.
Yeah.
Shout out Dusty May and Darius, who are good friends, for putting that together.
Yes.
But yeah, Kyle, I would like to lead us into our next segment here. Let's do some New Year's resolutions.
Let's go. Yes.
Let's do some New Year's resolutions.
We're about to enter 2026.
Why don't we just talk about them before we delve into other things? We split this into pods. I have the pod of Villanova, Temple, and LaSalle. Kyle has the pod of Penn, Drexel, and St. Joe's.
That's right.
Why don't you start us off?
Cope, I'll start us off. New Year's resolutions going into 2026. I'm going to start off with the Penn Quakers here. One of the things that we have talked about on this podcast, and something I think we'll talk about a little bit more, hopefully in more of a positive light, is free throw shooting. Despite the fact that this Penn team is a really good shooting team, they are 16th in KenPom right now in the country in three-point shooting. Number one, they're not a good two-point shooting team at 321st. But then the thing I think that can improve the most, and that's my New Year's resolution, is free throw shooting. And my official resolution for Penn is to shoot over 72.5% from the free throw line during Ivy League pay. Right now, 72.5% would put them at about 150th or so in the country in KenPom, which of course is a little more than a little higher than the 50th percentile. I don't think that's asking so much for a team that has good shooters. TJ Power, Ethan Roberts, when he gets back healthy, hopefully he gets back healthy first and foremost. Michael Zanoni, Adrian Levine's not a bad shooter. Cam Thrower. Like they have people who can shoot the basketball. They have 3 players who are shooting with consistent attempts, of course. I'm not going to talk about Jay Jones, who's 3 or 4 from 3 this year. But they have 3 guys who are shooting above 40% from 3. And then they have Adrian Levine, who's at, granted on 19 shots, almost 37%. And then Ethan Roberts, 38%. So they have guys who can shoot the basketball. That's not an issue. But free throw shooting, they're at 68.9% right now, which is 259th in the nation. And it's cost them some games. It cost them the Rutgers game. It probably helped it would have helped more against the George Mason game. And that wasn't a terrible game from them. 11 from 16, I think they were. But no, excuse me. They were 8 of 15. I was looking at something else from earlier. That's bad. That's not good. They can do a lot better than that. So that's my New Year's resolution is free throw shooting for Penn. If they can knock down the ones that they're given for a team that should be better at this than you would imagine, I think they are going to pull out some more games than even we would expect them to during Ivy League play. Because right now, with Ethan Roberts healthy, of course, I think they are a team that will make Ivy Madness. Without Ethan Roberts, I think it'll be possible, but a lot tougher. I think it's still possible. I think TJ Power's that good, and Zanoni's been playing well, and Cam Thrower has been awesome. But without the obvious of the health of Ethan Roberts, I think free throw shooting, if they can get that above 72.5%, get a little bit closer to the national average in college basketball, I think they're positioning themselves for an Ivy League Madness bid, excuse me. Cope, what's your first New Year's resolution?
Let's just go across Market Street to Drexel. I am going to do a Market Street doubleheader on Saturday. I'm going to do Hofstra Drexel 2:00, and then as a
wait, I have Drexel. Drexel in my pod.
Oh, whoops.
It's okay. Sorry. I'll get to them later.
Sorry, been a long episode. A lot of yapping here.
It's okay.
I'll start with Villanova here. Let's just hey, here's a New Year's resolution. Ready? Let's keep on keeping on. I don't like. There's not necessarily like a bad thing here. I see ascending defense. Maybe I could say free throw shooting at this point, Kyle. Like I don't think Jay Wright's walking through that door. I don't think Jalen Brunson's walking through that door. I don't think Eric Dixon's walking. Certainly Colin Gillespie's not walking through that door. If there's anybody that doesn't have college eligibility, it's that guy who's totally out of it.
Eric Dixon too. But
yeah, Eric Dixon. I mean, he would need to pay his own medical bills if he came back to college. Regardless, I see improvement from Villanova on the defensive ends. We talked at nauseum about the 3-point prowess of Bryce Lindsey, the play of Caden Lewis. You've seen those guys grow, playing with each other. Caden Lewis has come so far from the BYU game. Nobody played well at Michigan. Kevin Willard admitted that. But the way the team has grown, Matt Hodge is getting better. Caden Lewis is getting better. Bryce Lindsey is getting better. And don't forget, like, you have like a redshirt sophomore in Bryce Lindsey. You have a true freshman in Caden Lewis. You have a redshirt freshman in Matt Hodge. Like, these are still young guys. They're allowed to get better and grow, and they are. And they're doing it quickly. And the defense is doing it quickly. In the conference play, as the calendar turns here, Kyle, and before you know it, we're going to hit March 1st, I see a Villanova team that's getting incrementally better. Keep on keeping on, keep being consistent. Let's not have an epitome of brutality. Let's not have a game last year where Villanova goes to Providence and totally puts up a dud, because you can't run from any smoke in this conference. You have to play everybody. Just keep doing what you're doing. That's my New Year's resolution. We're on. It's like somebody that started hitting the gym in like July. They're seeing really good progress. Guess what? Your New Year's resolution doesn't have to be it doesn't need to be that you need to go to the gym. You're already doing it. You're on a good pace. Onwards and upwards. Keep on keeping on. Keep doing your thing.
All right.
I'm going to do one more. Let's do a snake draft. I'll come right back.
You want to do snake draft? All right.
Yeah, we'll do a snake draft.
How about it?
I'm going to start with Temple. They checked off a box tonight, even though it's not really a New Year's resolution, because they did it tonight. And that's going to be, Kyle, beat teams that we should beat. Take care of teams that we should take care of. Last year, Temple missing some guys, down some bodies, went to Charlotte, lost in, I think, double overtime. It was a crazy game. They won down there tonight. They've now won 5 in a row. They win their conference opener. They get 3 of the lowest rated Ken Pom teams in this conference to start conference play, one of which was Charlotte. The other is UTSA, who's 285, which is the lowest mark in the conference. And then they went away at Charlotte, UTSA at home on Saturday. The following Wednesday, a week from tomorrow, is East Carolina at home, who's 278. Now you get 2 home games against teams that you should beat. If you can get off to a 3-0 start, you win 6 in a row. 7, 6 of which are over D1 opponents. You roll into Memphis in FedEx form against the Memphis team, who's not as good as people thought they would be. That's big. And don't forget, Kyle, in the American this year, only the top 10 of the 13 teams in the conference make the conference tournament. Every game matters. These games matter. You have to beat the teams that you should beat. And Temple's at the point. You should be beating Charlotte. You should be beating UTSA, who's still in upstart mode in year 2 of Austin Claunch. And you should be beating East Carolina. Let's get off to a 3-0 start here. Win 2 games in the new year at home. Feel good about ourselves. 61 wins, 7 in a row. And then after we're feeling good about ourselves, we've won a bunch of games in a row. Let's go down to Memphis and see where things stand. Let's go down to Memphis and do that on a win streak. So take care of teams that you should take care of. whether that's UTSA and East Carolina, who they're going to have to go to. They're going to play Rice twice, who's currently 235 in Ken Palm. Let's take care of those games. And then when a South Florida comes home, when UAB comes home, when North Texas comes to North Broad, let's see where things stand there. Let's see where things stand there and how good this Temple team is. But these games, lose a couple of them. Heaven forbid you miss out on the conference tournament. It's games like this you'll be kicking yourself in March when you're not down in Birmingham playing in the tournament. So because every game means something and you're not a shoo-in to go down to you're not a shoo-in to go play at Dickies Arena like old times. Every game matters. These games they should win. They got off to a good now. It was scary. Charlotte had a chance to win at the end after some missed free throws, and they almost came back and won. But it's hard to win on the road in conference play. They're 1-0 now. But take care, Kyle, my New Year's resolution for Temple, take care of business when you should. Take care of business against these teams that you should, especially these next two at home. Not a shoo-in to make the conference tournament. Every game matters. Take care of business when you should.
Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, me for two. First thing I'm going to do is go to Hawk Hill for my New Year's resolution. And I know we mentioned a lot about the Hawks already on this podcast, so I'm not going to harp on any of that, except for maybe to help make a couple points here. But my New Year's resolution for St. Joe's is to become a more balanced offense with their shot selection. Cope, the Steve Donahue offense is fast, takes a lot of threes. We know this. And right now, the data on Ken Pom supports that. They are 77th in the country in three-point attempts per their field goal attempts. They also are a pretty high assist rate team, by the way, too. That for assists for field goals made, they're 48th in the country at 59.3%. That's a good thing. However, normally while I am pro, finding the most efficient shot and the best shot and all those things, Cope, as I mentioned earlier, this St. Joe's team is abysmal from the three-point line. 26.6% from the year, 357th in the country. And you mentioned earlier, too, that right now, after losing Deuce especially, they don't really have an identity. So now was the perfect time to change their identity. They don't need to be a team that's shooting almost 45% of the shots as three-pointers when they're not a team that's good at that. You know what they are good at, Cope? Free throw shooting. They're 32nd in the country, 77.1%. Maybe that's something you could try to tap into a little more. And they've done that a little bit. I mean, 22% of their scoring is from free throws, which is 98th in the country. It's not bad. I think it could be higher. They're also not quite as bad as a two-point shooting team at 209th in the country. Their offense isn't going to be what we thought it was going to be going into the season. One, because of the data we have so far, but also with the loss of your leading scorer. Now is the perfect time to change and see if something can go right, see if you can catch a little bit of lightning in a bottle. I don't think it's going to be from beyond the arc because through 13 games of the season, they're pretty bad at it, Cope. That's just the reality of the situation, and it's not getting better when you lose, like you mentioned earlier, maybe not a great three-point shooter, but someone who certainly can and had that option for you. So I think now's the perfect time to change it up, see what else is going to work, play to the strengths of your team, and maybe you can find something here where you're not in the pillow fight of the A-10. Maybe you're somewhere in the middle or where we thought they would be going into the season. It's going to be tougher, of course, like I said, without their best player who was dismissed from the team. But if they can find something offensively where they're not relying on the three because they're not good at it, I think that's a pretty good resolution going into the new year of maybe something else can work in this situation. So that's what I'm looking for St. Joe's, become a more balanced offense in their shot selection. Which leads me to the other side of the market earlier, like you mentioned, Cope, with the Drexel Dragons. And I have an interesting one, and this is probably the one, I researched them all pretty well, but I think this one is the one I spent the most time on and I'm most excited to talk about with Drexel. And that is have more offense go through Victor Panoff. And it's an interesting one I'm going to dive into a little bit because I think there's some data that supports this. First of all, we know Drexel's offense, as it stands right now, isn't great. 266 in adjusted efficiency on Ken Pom, some of their metrics aren't great. The only thing that they're, if you've ever been on KenPom and have seen metrics on for a team, it lines up as red, as, different shades of red for how bad you are, different shades of green for how good you are. The only thing they're green in on offense, Cope, is offensive rebounding, which they're 98th in the country, and 3-point shooting, which they're 87th. So they have to find something. Free throw shooting, something we've harped on too, that they're not very good at. But I wanna talk about Victor Panoff, because for a few of these sites that we use, which is KenPom, Evan Mia, Bart Torvik, all of them support this data that he is the one of, if not the most efficient offensive player that they have. Of course, my Evan Mia site decided to refresh, so I had to refresh it real quick. But box office performance rating, or not box office, excuse me, box offensive performance rating, he is 4th on the team right now, which is just one metric. Offensive performance rating here, he is 2nd. Adjusted team offensive efficiency, which kind of adjusts for how efficient the offense is with you specifically on the court, he's 1st by at least 3 points. Average team efficiency margin on Evan Mia, he's the only player positive right now, which is offense and defense. You take the difference of that at 1. I go over to Bart Torvik. His usage percentage, which is how often plays go through a player on offense on the court at any given time, he's toward the bottom of the team. And it can be a little skewed. It actually has Ralph Koot at 25%. So I guess on his minutes on the floor, they're using him on offense more than I think we would expect. But Shane Blakeney's right around 23%. Josh Reed's leading the team at 25.5. Victor Panoff's at 17.3, only ahead of the 2 centers, Martin DeLaportiere and Garfield Turner, who I also would like to see play a little more, but that's a different point. Effective field goal percentage. Despite those 2 centers, he is leading the team at 62%. True shooting percentage, 63%. Offensive rating, he's up there as well. Like, this is a player, and I know he's been playing a lot at the 4. I think maybe if you can try to get him playing a little bit more at the 3, can maybe open some things up for him, get him some more looks from the 3-point line, where he's one of their better 3-point shooters on the team. I think it's a really interesting scenario where if you can get Victor Panoff, I'm not saying he should be the one creating. He's not a point guard. He's not one of those crafty, bigger assist guys. Like, this is a wild comparison. I'm not comparing them, but someone like Nikola Jokic, who's 7 feet tall but can pass the basketball like anybody you've ever seen. He's not that. But he is a guy who can space the floor. He's a guy who can drive the basket. He makes smart decisions with the basketball from what I've seen. I think this is a real opportunity for Drexel, where a team that might be a little bit challenged offensively right now, you can take the ball out of a couple guys' hands a little bit more, who are good but can play around Victor Panoff and use his floor spacing to the betterment of the entire Drexel offense. So that's my New Year's resolution, is to find ways to, this wasn't the actual saying, I'm going to look at the actual saying, have the offense go through Victor Panoff more, I think is a real opportunity for them to open up their offense and hopefully get some more wins here early and throughout the season in CAA play. I know that was long-winded, but Cope, I was looking into that, and the data supports it. I'm not saying it's 100% certain. Maybe his efficiency will drop once he's used more, because the data supports that he's not one of the most used offensive players on the team, despite the fact that he's arguably their best shooter, especially from 3-point range. Actually, I have the percentages right here. He is leading the team from 3-point range this year, and he's 4th in attempts, but he's 21 of 45, which is good for 47%. He did miss a couple games. There's some guys who have played a couple games more than he has because of injury. But you have someone like Yvonne Vanderhorst, who's, no offense, but he's 13 of 50, which is 26%. Shane Blakeney's taken the most on the team at 79. He's made 28 of them at 35%, which is good. But I think this is a real opportunity to open up the offense for Drexel. So that's my resolution for them.
Yeah, and he's played in 12 this year. Like, he got ejected from the American game, and then he was out with an injury for a little bit. But hey, 11 points last night, knocked down 3 threes. It was all very astute by you. You brought the facts. If I could just throw one in there, I'll throw a little New Year's resolution for Drexel. How about a full 40 minutes?
Yeah, please. That's
How
a
about
good one
440?
too.
Again, like same thing yesterday. You go down to TD Arena, Charleston, one of the hardest places to play in this conference, and they're winning at halftime. And then they can't make a shot in the second half. And they free throw shooting is another thing. They look 11-16 last night, but they only took 2 in the first half. But still, you're up at halftime. You lose the lead. You lose the game. You did that against American. At LaSalle, you're not playing well in the first half. Played a very good second half. No full 40 there. Penn, this is a close game at home. Penn ends up winning by 16. Syracuse, we know about that one, just couldn't get anything going in the second half despite keeping that close. And then they were up at people forget they're up at Hagan Arena at the half, and they end up losing by 11 here. So a full 40 minutes is what I would have said for Drexel. We can throw. How about both? But very astute by you. I'll end here, Kyle, with LaSalle. It's a bit tough. 263rd in KenPom. Preseason, this is number 200. Or excuse me. I believe it was 163. 130. Like it's preseason ranked 202. So we have a fall from grace here a little bit. My New Year's resolution, Kyle, is just progress. That's all. This was not expected to be a team that was going to compete in Darius Nichols' first year. Don't forget, they're still missing who's projected to be their starting point guard in Jaden Johnson. I've seen Jose Grullon go through warm-ups, be in uniform. We've yet to see him yet. He could provide some shooting for a team, Kyle, that is 353rd in point distribution of how many of their points come from threes, and is 360th in how many of their total field goals are three-pointers in that ratio. They also shoot sub 300 percentage as a team. He wouldn't fix that, but it would give you a threat where you could have somebody kind of help space the floor for you. Truth Harris has missed games. Jerome Brewer, we haven't seen in a little bit. There's injuries all over the place. Truth Harris gets her 5 minutes in the opener. Bo Embiid's played in 6 games. He's missed some time. Noah Collier's only played in 3 games. We've never seen what the full capabilities of this LaSalle team could be yet. That being said, they won 4 games, Kyle. Okay, has it been good? No. Based on win-loss, based on the way they played, no. Okay, I think that's the only reasonable thing you could say is that it hasn't been good. There's a bunch of underlying issues as to why that's the case. Injuries being one. There's a zillion new players on a team. It's the first year of a new coach. Had a hard job in what's a pretty good league with some damn good coaches in it. But I just want to see progress is all, Kyle. It's not all going to happen in year one. These turnarounds you see at Utah State or whoever are at schools where there's sustained excellence, where there's resources, where even in a coach's first year, like that is not the norm. Texas might miss the first year of Sean Miller, might miss tournament first year of Sean Miller with all the money and the resources they have. It's hard to be good in year one. I just want to see progress. They're 37th in offensive rebound percentage. We knew we were going to get that, but there's been some games that haven't rebounded that, John. They didn't rebound that, John, at Temple. No one does it against Michigan. But I just want to see progress, Kyle. Late in the year. Like, KenPom has them not projected to win a game until St. Joe's comes to Glazier on January 31st. But late in the year, when VCU comes to town, when Rhode Island comes to town, when GW comes to town, when you got to go to Hagan Arena and you play these games, these city games, can you get up for those? Can you maybe spoil somebody's season at the end where they underestimate you and you impose your will on them? Like the play style, the pressing, it's kind of hard to do the depth piece when not everybody's available. So it's tough, Kyle. It's tough, but I just want to see progress is all. You're being too harsh on Darius and these guys. Like, look, has it been good? They're 4-9. They just lost by 52 points to Michigan. Sure, maybe it hasn't been good in year one. This is a tough job. This is a build for the long haul. This is a build over a couple of years. That's what I'm more interested in seeing. Year one, what is this? What is let me see the play style. With what you have, let me see what you have with that. And you've seen it at times. But we're going to get into the grind of A-10 play here, where the competition is going to stiffen. They played a good non-conference schedule and had to play up, played some power teams, but we're not playing Coppin State and Monmouth and Merrimack. It's a full A10 from here. I want to see the play style. I want to see progress. I want to see you knock off or give some teams a run for their money late when people are sleeping on you and it's toward the end of the year. But I just want to see progress, Kyle. It was never going to happen in year one, but progress. I want the arrow pointing up. I want the season when it ends. Hey, we ended on a good note. Maybe we got some wins. We saw the glimpses of what the play style could be. Even if it's going to be a totally different team next year with some guys maybe transferring out, all these grad students leaving. What does that play style look like? What can I say? Hey, that I saw flashes of this, maybe with the better teams, maybe perhaps some continuity. Let's see what Darius can do over the long haul here. With progress, Kyle, is my New Year's resolution. Not placing too much. Like, don't forget that we're coming up on 13 years that this program has not made the NCAA tournament. It's been a while. But progress. This is a build for the long haul. It was always going to be that way, whether this team was fully healthy or not. But progress, Kyle.
Progress?
That's what I'd like to see in early 2026.
Progress. All right. Well, Cope, that's about it from us. This has got to be one of the longest episodes we've had, but we had a lot to talk about. Any final thoughts from you before we sign off for the year 2025?
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. I will be at LaSalle tomorrow. Doubleheader Saturday. I'll be at Hofstra Drexel at 2:00. A fun one. I'm doing a story for Jaden Daly and Daily Dose of Hoops. Illinois, Penn State. We're doing the Palestra game. Place is going to be packed. Very good Illinois team. I'm going to go do a game story on that and go see the Cathedral as it rightfully should be with the corners full. And then Monday the 5th, Kyle, even though it's next week, I will be at Jadwin Gymnasium for the Penn Quakers home opener. Brand McCaffrey's played in quite a few Penn Princeton games. He'll now be coaching in his first at Jadwin. So I will be crossing state lines on Monday, and I'll be headed there. I'm looking forward to it. A great year ahead, Kyle. If all goes to plan. Last year I hit 46 games. Tomorrow makes 22. If all goes to plan, there could be 60 or 70 on my docket by the end of the year.
I want to say you're crazy, but that's beautiful.
That or sit on the couch.
Yeah.
Your choice.
I don't know. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I don't think I'll be at 60 or 70 games this year. If I can even, I don't even know how many I'm at. I think I might be at 9 or 10 this year. I don't even know if I'm at that much, to be honest with you, but I'm probably close. If I can get to 20 or 25, I'll be happy. It's a busy schedule over here, but yes, Happy New Year, everybody. Hope you all had happy holidays, of course, but stay safe on the new year. Have a healthy new year. Cope, I got my get back in fantasy football. I had to mention it. For those of you who don't know, Dynasty League that we're in with our friends, Cope beat me in the championship last year. I won the championship the first year, and then we met in the finals again, and I got him back this time. But I could not mention that. It is what it is. But
last year was a thriller. This year was a snoozer.
I think I won by like 32 points.
Yeah, snoozer.
Last year I put up 170 and lost. That's the kind of year. That's the kind of year it was. But it was a great matchup. But I'm happy to get you back. But yeah, shout out for another fun year in the finals as well for that. And that's pretty much all I got, which leads me to first of all, thank you all for listening this year. We've had probably, we've enjoyed all of our seasons doing this podcast and years, but this has probably been one of our favorite, if not our favorite, just with the amount of growth I think that we've had personally within ourselves with the podcast and also for the podcast as a whole. And we're not slowing down, as you guys know. So excited to keep this up in 2026. To do that, of course, make sure you follow us on Instagram, Twitter, at Big Five Pod. Make sure you follow our TikTok, which is, I think, at Big Five Pod as well. They have like some weird spacing, so I had to double check. But make sure, of course, you go to our YouTube channel to find our podcast and our shorts and everything like that, and our audio-only versions, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever else you may get your podcasts. which leads me to my favorite joke of every year, Cope. Thank you all for listening. We will see you next year.